It's great to be here with Dr. Nicole. How do I pronounce your name? Ohebshalom?
Perfect.
I
So
mean,
much
going over
fun.
your resume, so cool. PhD in
Cool.
human sexuality, MA in clinical counseling from New York University. And what was really interesting is you have certifications in transdisciplinary violence, trauma studies. You work with Carol Gilligan, a huge name in the therapy world. So lots to draw from. And of course, you're MDRIA certified and a consultant. And that's what we have in common. You do
Yeah.
sex therapy, certified sex therapist. I mean, you've gone across the therapy world. So that's really awesome. Thank you for joining me today.
I'm excited. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. One thing I wanted to ask, just to kind of jump in here, is your recent articles about shame in couples and
Mm.
how it stems back to childhood often and earlier relationships. So I'm just kind of wondering, what are you seeing as the leading cause that couples report to you that they learned to live in shame? Like, what are you noticing most often?
In couples therapy, the role of shame and how in the
Yes.
article that it's really part of that dance between two people. And not always, but some of the time it stems from their childhood and what they bring in. And then I lost your
Yeah.
direct question there.
I was asking, what do you think is the leading cause that people gain this shame in life, like from childhood? What you see in the parenting that people receive to then go on to really live a life of shame?
Yeah.
Is it neglect? Is it trauma? Is these little things across time? What would you
It
say?
it could be. It's something, and I'm gonna connect it back to like the work that we share together, the EMDR work, because a lot of times it's really I think it's two part, but I'm gonna go on a tangent, but we're in convo, so I guess I
Yeah,
can
do
go
it.
everywhere. We just have some fun. But the reason I love EMDR, it's really like one of my favorite things is because it goes really to the heart of things. And that is what our negative cognition is. It's, the messages that our body picked up, what we learned about ourselves within certain contexts is that's really the lie about ourselves. But we keep playing it out as if it's true because and it, and so a lot of the times in couples therapy, it's like a deeper avenue of that. So to answer your question, the role of shame, there you go. It is a little bit
Yeah.
clearer. Yeah. So the role of shame, it could stem from these negative cognitions that we feel that tension in our system. And we're just not quite sure. We're either frozen or in the fight, flight, freeze response. And so we're enacting it. And because this person means so much to us, we're still hunter and gatherers. We haven't moved away from that. So because this person
Right.
means so much to us and it's really our anchor in life, it does feel like life and death. In a sense, it is like life and death. When we break up with someone, they found that it really does impact our heart, our physical heart.
Yeah.
So, so part of this avoidance pattern or attachment pattern, all the attachment stuff that everyone's really into, there's a reason that people are into it. It speaks to them. And I think shame is a big part of that.
I was just going to ask if you ever have people do anything, like let's say for everybody out there with EMDR therapy, we desensitize a traumatic memory with the emotions, physical sensations down to a zero. We try to get it to a 0 out of 10.
Right.
So we get through that. We install positive thought. We try to put a nice bow on it. And when it comes to shame that's acquired earlier in life, that's playing out through these enactments, as you so well put it, to use that analytic term, and couplehood, do you ever, when it's that reprocessing's fresh in the client's mind, have them do something different in their relationship or add some couples work onto individual EMDR in some way that really seals it in? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So if I'm working with someone, it's very different if I'm working with them individually or as a couple. So if
Mhm.
I'm working with them as a couple, sometimes I'll do flash technique, which is a form of reprocessing desensitization. So that's much easier to do on the spot with couples. But if I'm working with someone individually, or maybe sometimes like some deep brain reorientation is really helpful, just depends what's happening. But or parts work. But if I'm working with an individual and I'm noticing I'm like using these bigger terms that are kind of more clinical, so I'll explain better. But if I'm working with someone individually, how do I integrate the couples or say relational work in two ways? Sometimes, it's a lot of I'm keeping in mind that most things are relational. So when the person
Yes.
walks in, I'm already thinking about their relationships or their culture. And so that's always part of the work. So, I'll use Laura Purnell's work around the figures, but within the type of couples work that I like is emotionally focused couples therapy. So I'll use that framework. I'll use that language. And so I'll kind of somehow integrate like the art of therapy. I'll somehow integrate that language into the reprocessing as like an interweave. It's hard to directly answer it because I'll just kind of do it. It's more intuitive.
No, I
A
do the
lot of this
same.
type of work is like kind of intuitive too. After you've done EMDR for so long, you'll just know when to do like parts work or like internal family systems or attachment work.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's great. I could talk about that all day. I mean, having people fly into the insecurity and the attachment wound and like the loving eyes exercise. I think Jim Knipe created that one where you like
Yes.
hold your inner child. So powerful for attachment.
Yeah, but it is also important to have the couple come in. So I work a lot, let's say, with pelvic pain. So a woman who
Mhm.
has vaginismus, and that's sometimes is a protective strategy. Sometimes a protective strategy from within that relationship, not that something went wrong, but maybe one partner learned from maybe they're like super high performer, like very like the top performer. So they maybe
Yeah.
in their childhood they learned to really that they're capable of doing everything and they expect the
Yes.
same from everybody else. And but their partner who's extremely capable as well, maybe is not capable of what they're capable of. So there's a misattunement between both of them. There's an expectation. And so over time, they're well meaning, but over time, one person's body is shutting down as a protective mechanism. And then all of a sudden, pelvic pain comes into the picture because they're scared and they keep saying what their needs are, but it's being missed. And so now they're creating this dance together. One's pushing forward, one's moving away and shutting down. So there hasn't been sex for a year. It was very common. No sex for a year and just a lot of anxiety in the house. So maybe, there'll be some reprocessing around. So bringing in the EMDR and EFT work. So there'll be reprocessing and ego strength, like parts work and internal family system and boundaries and
Yes.
embodiment work, around the pelvic pain. But then every few weeks, you want to bring in the couple so they could process it together because once you're working on the shame, let's say, that's the avoidance pattern is intertwined with, you don't want to, then the person has to go home. And so that work has to get reinforced at home. What can they do together? How can they create new patterns together? Because that other person's also suffering and feeling like their attachment wound is getting reinforced and hurt. And also, you only know part of the story with one person. You don't really know what's actually happening until you meet the other person too.
Exactly. You never know that. I think that's so beautiful to talk about the emotional, physical reactions that can be in the wake of trauma and how to non-pathologically help the couple through it. One partner pulling away, one trying to get closer, like the buildup and the anxiety causing more physical clamming up, the shutdown. Sounds like you do a great job working through that cycle that we see so often in any work with couples.
Do you ever use couples work with your EMDR? Because I know some
Um,
therapists bring it actually into the EMDR work.
I have not. I haven't been doing couples work in the last few years. I really focus on the individual, but I've known people to do it. An old colleague of mine, Liz Legg, back in Denver, does it. I think sometimes it'll be one partner going through the phase 3 through 6, like the reprocessing, the other one sitting there silently and then alternating another week. But you can't use that stuff in an argument later. And that's such a crucial part. I think people are innovating some interesting ways in couples EMDR, but I think your idea, like those interweaves are so useful and looking at the physical symptoms. I mean, there's so many different directions to go.
Yeah.
But for one, you bring up your women's health specialty. You have so much knowledge about that, which is exceptionally needed now in the therapy world. How has your nursing and fertility medicine
Oh,
background changed the way you conceptualize birth trauma or anything else in that realm?
it's a good question. Well, I think you don't know. I was a nurse like over 20 years ago, so it was a while ago. But I think, when I was a nurse, I didn't stay in it too long, and partly for various reasons. But one of them, when I was working as a nurse, I was more interested in the therapy aspect of it, and particularly how it connected with the body. Like I and so I think that's what I focused a lot on the body in therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really focused a lot. Like yeah.
Well, it's which leads to your article. I think one of the articles I saw that I really liked from you is The Art of Therapy. And when you put in that article that I'm going to quote, much of therapy spent helping a person approach the places they've organized their life around without fully knowing it. These are the beliefs that shape their relationship, self concept, capacity for intimacy, expectations of the world. And you put in there beliefs like, I'm not enough, I'm too much, I will be left, I must not
Mm.
need. So, I was wondering, were you thinking of EMDR negative cognitions when formulating that, or is that just coincidental? Because those are exactly those cognitive elements of that embodied treatment that we do with EMDR.
I don't know if it's like this for you, but the more I learn, I just kind of integrate things.
Oh, yeah,
You
definitely.
know, yeah. So it's just so it's just where my mind always goes. Like I want to
Mhm.
know first when someone I'm trying to see where these anchors are of their negative cognitions. So it's just kind of how I orient myself.
Yeah. No,
Because
I think
it
that's beautiful.
go ahead.
No, I
I
was
think it is.
agreeing with you. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So I think like, it's, in couples in EFT, there's this really great part of or attachment. There's this question that I learned from a wonderful trainer, and he said, "What is the message your body is picking up when you were little? When you heard your parents arguing, how did you know your parents argued? And when they were, what was the message your body picked up? Which is really that to me, it's that negative cognition. It's the schema. So there's something to that. There's something to even in couples facing each other and saying when they are repairing and they're sharing something differently, if they're you want them to really face each other and say, what did your body just pick up as your partner said that? When you looked at his eyes, what did you see? And that is that negative cognition getting repaired in the moment in the body.
Yes.
So um it's also when you're doing the interweaves in EMDR, in that moment in your body, what are you noticing when you're looking at the eyes of that younger child?
Yes.
The loving child eyes or the parts where when you're looking, what is it that you're noticing now? How do you feel towards that younger child? How does that sit
Yes.
in your body right now? Okay, now move your eyes and feel that. Stay with it. It's so I think from my nursing experience, even, I've been meditating. I've had a meditation practice since I was like 9, 10 years old. So I think even it really is from there. It's like, what are you feeling in your body? Because that's what we're always responding to. It's what we're feeling, that first response. That's the information. It's what was that researcher back in I forgot his name. I have his books over there. But he kind of said that there's a researcher that said, our thoughts are really coming from our emotions.
I think it's Antonio Damasio,
Yes, thank
right?
you.
You're
Yes,
welcome, because I wrote about him.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm kind of an emotivist to a certain extent, that it's from the bottom up and we clothe things in intellectualism.
Yeah.
Not all the time,
Yeah. Not all the
but
time, but there's something to it.
yeah, there is something to it. And when people guard against emotional processes and don't feel anything, I mean, we really have to guide them to the defense, the blocking beliefs. I get that question so often from consultees is, what if someone can't feel emotions? Well, there's a defense there to target, something like, emotions will destroy me, emotions are weakness. And you usually have to do the work to dispel shame around emotions first. I'm wondering if that's been the case with you, where you've seen that a ton, especially with high performers, to bring it to
Uh,
that population you work with.
yeah, I would think there's some people that actually they don't feel that much in their body.
Yeah. Not that
You know,
interoceptive, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, they're just and they're not going to. Like they're just not going to because that's how their body and their mind is oriented. A lot of like really smart people, for example, they're sometimes it's a comfort and it's a defense, and to some extent, it's just like how they are. And I think in therapy, we're so over reliant. Recently, it's very fashionable. It's like everything you have to feel in your body. And I
Yes.
don't think that's helpful either. It could
Yeah.
be shaming. It could be very shaming for people. Like, why am I not feeling it? My therapist is asking me. So sometimes yeah. So it's being attuned to your client, I think, and being creative and try. Sometimes the parts work. It's like, I'm not sure actually where to go with this question and answer,
No, I like this. Let me pick something up. I
but
think
because I said a few things, but
you said a lot of great things, and it kind of dovetails with something else I want to ask you. But to piggyback off of it, when therapy has a certain predominating, we could say, denomination, we have to be careful that people aren't excluded. And so for a long time, it was this stiff upper lip, hyper individualism of the Western world, and independence, rugged independence at any cost was valued as this
yeah,
great ideal. And then now, I would say, since kind of the traumatology revolution, which is great, obviously, I think so, or I wouldn't be doing EMDR. There's the sort of turn into feel everything, linger on everything. And I think, well, we can't have a pendulum swing completely. We need a dialectic. It's both and. And so you're right. I think when people who don't talk therapies, who don't constantly talk in therapy terms and feel everything to the same extent, get kind of left out of the narrative, you're right. It can be very pathologizing.
right,
And that can alienate
yeah,
them further from therapy. Like, oh, this really isn't for me because everything to me is in a giant emotional catharsis, which is okay. But the people around them just have to be all right with that, that's going to be
right.
their baseline.
Right. Well, like, I think it was, yeah, Freud was like focused on things being catharsis, but it's really about integration.
I love that word. You're
So
right. And you write about that a lot.
it's really, I think it's really about integration. It's like, and having some steady ground. Insight is helpful, but it's what a lot of the high performers, they're so good. They're better than me in pattern recognition. They could see the patterns, but they're still stuck. So it is that question of how could you find that balance between top down and bottom up healing and
Yeah.
not get lost in it. Like, how is a person actually escaping, using escape to go when they're in their head? How could you listen for that? So if you're listening to them and you ask the person a question and you know that they're extremely high performer and you ask them a question, to what point are they now escaping and not answering your question, not doing the work where they're feeling safe, they can intellectualize it. So it's like you have to really listen to their
Yeah.
tone of voice or where the story is going, and then say, okay, now can we come back to the question? This is what I heard you share, and then say, maybe something like in hearing me share that back to you, how did that feel in your body? And kind of have more of a relational space of creating safety, creating container for them to drop in a little bit and just titrate it. So then the integration can slowly happen. And you could have a little bit of the intellectualization because that's very helpful. Nothing is good or bad. It's how you're using it and the
Couldn't have
awareness
said
that
it
you
better.
have around it. And so I think maybe that's part of the art of therapy too.
As your article would suggest. I mean, the way out is through, but that doesn't mean that we have to charge through. It is a
Well,
marathon and not a sprint. Thank you. And I was going to ask you literally, how do you distinguish kind of trauma informed, compassionate pacing from collaborating with client avoidance? But you just answered it. Listen for the avoidance, intellectualization, and gently say, let's go back to what we were talking about if we can, and just be a little linger with that a little longer,
mhm.
and so that's so much of
Yeah,
the rhythm of EMDR. There's a cadence to it,
yeah.
playing by ear to an extent. I wanted to ask you, so you teach quite a bit. I mean, you know what it's like to be an EMDR consultant. You've taught in other venues as well. So I put you on the spot a little bit here, so feel free
Okay.
not to answer it. But do you notice any prevailing myths or misconceptions about good trauma work or therapeutic work that you hear from newbies, your trainees that you just like so maybe some pop psychology stuff that you're seeing that you think that's not quite right. I'd like to kind of set the
Well,
record straight.
well, I guess it's interesting. I help Andrew Leeds with his trainings. I think
Oh, yeah, I
he's
know him.
awesome. I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm a
he's
big fan.
knowledgeable.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, he's done a lot of great research. He's just always like so up to date. I mainly like join in his training so I could stay up to date because he's so up to date. Yeah. So I think like thinking about that when people are new, seeing some questions. Anyway, so I get distracted. So
No,
when
that's
people are
okay.
new, I think, it is the EMDR, the bilateral what is interesting, I think, is it's the IEP model that is EMDR. So EMDR is not just like moving your eye back and looking at thinking about a memory and your eyes moving back and forth.
Right.
EMDR is we're trying to figure out what's maladaptive and how to create breadcrumbs for someone to have an adaptive response.
Yes. Say a little more about the IEP model, if you would.
What do
Since
you
well, you said
Well, I think
EMDR is
that's like
that
a
model.
yeah, and I think, so right when a client walks in, at least this is how I learned it with Andrew, it's right when a client walks in, and you're holding that container, that in itself is the EMDR. You're already doing the work.
Yes, you are.
It's not the bilateral stimulation is just a portion of it, but it's not like really the goal or the aim.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Yeah, it's all the way from treatment planning through closure and reevaluation. It's EMDR all the way down. And that is a common misconception. People think it's just the eye movement, and it's not. It's a whole comprehensive model that meets people where they are and allows them to enter in at a pace that they're comfortably uncomfortable. So,
Yes, but I guess it's like a lot of new therapists will want to rush into, I just have to do the eye movement and then my client will be okay and they won't be in distress, which is a really great intention because I don't want this person that I'm seeing to be in distress. But
right.
not the eye movement can help, but it's really figuring out, spending some time and figuring out what is really maladaptive here. So you can really understand what the neuro pathways are. And sometimes people will rush that. A lot of
Right.
times people will say, for example, it could even what I hear often from people that might get trained another type of EMDR is, maybe they won't even make a memory list or they won't figure out how a person's exactly distressed and what their negative cognition is. So, and I'm talking about basics here. I know I'm going really, really basic, but I think it's
Okay.
important too, is that maybe they're doing talk therapy and then there's something just distressing to the client. There's a memory that's coming up and they'll just target that one memory. They'll say, you know what? You keep talking about that one memory. Why don't we do some EMDR? That's not, maybe that could be a little bit helpful, but it's actually not. You have to spend time and see what is the neural pathway so you can actually make a change for that person. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense.
A
So,
lot of therapists will do it this way. They'll just focus on the memory.
yeah. So they'll just kind of do some drive-by bilateral EMDR therapy instead of doing more of a comprehensive treatment plan.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, yeah, that misses if there's something underlying that could come up later that could shock you, right? We want to minimize surprises when we can. We can't always minimize every last surprise, but we can do enough. And it really does take good treatment planning to start from. So I like that. What do you wish more people knew about working with high performers? Because you've learned quite a bit about that population.
Yeah. It's a good question, but I'm also kind of looking at the comments. And
Please go from there.
I like to say one thing. This is all I think this is kind of doing like EMDR 101 I'm doing today. But
It's okay.
I think it's
I dig
important
it.
that. Yeah, I think also what's important in the case conceptualization maybe is to the slow rhythm is really to help strengthen something positive. It's not so much like reprocessing a memory, so which is wonderful. So a lot of
Yes.
times, I think in the beginning, it's good to do some parts work and see, you know, people come in. I don't know if you have this experience where people come in and they really want to focus on, I have to heal this trauma. And let's go into the memories really fast. They're like pushing the therapist to really focus on certain memories that are in their mind. Rightly so, but it's nice to slow it down and do some strengthening work and see how the client has their strengths. What was that term that we talked about that we were thinking of maybe talking about today? Resilience, like
Yeah,
how they
exactly.
are
That's what I was gonna
resilient
say. Yeah.
and how they are resilient and spend some time and have that framework for them because that can get integrated into the trauma work too. A lot of people who come in for trauma, they don't see themselves as resilient at all.
No, they
And
don't.
so, what do you think about that?
I agree with you. I think strengths based is an amazing direction to go to add on to EMDR therapy as a lens. I mean, there's different what we call resource development installation techniques that you can do in EMDR therapy. And I know Andrew Leeds had a big hand in actually creating a lot of those. So essentially, some clients need a calm place, they need a nurturing figure, they need a wise figure, whatever you need. But also, sometimes if people need to recognize moments of strength and inner strength or wisdom or nurturing they've had or something from themselves, it can be great to help create that where they can really savor their past triumphs and do some slow tapping and noticing that because they haven't created what I call a positive memory playlist, things to go back to that say, I can do this. They just have these benchmark memories that say, I can't do it.
Mm. Hmm.
So I like that.
Do you ever do any parts work around it?
Yeah, actually, I have done ego state work. I'll use some IFS terms as well. I've had a few trainings on ego state work. Yeah, the parts work I do usually is in phase 4, where we kind of have the client notice the manager part, like the fire or the
You do it that
firefighter
way.
parts. Yeah, and just
Awesome.
see how to, yeah, thank you. Especially with addictions work, that can be really good to notice what these parts that are trying to shut down emotion are really afraid of. They're often afraid of the emotion and pushing it away with substances. But how do you approach parts work? I mean, I'll add this. I was
That's
in the
great.
resourcing
Yeah.
stage, like drawing on more adaptive parts explicitly is great. Like you can do it throughout in that phase, in the prep phase as well. But how do you do parts work with EMDR? That'd be cool to.
But I guess it would depend on the person, but recently I'm finding myself spending a lot more time in it before the
Yeah.
reprocessing. I've been really enjoying it, and I think it gives them it helps the work a lot too. So when someone's going into reprocessing, we can pull on these parts and have them connect to it and really see what the burden is that the part is holding on to. And I'm just seeing, particularly with like really chronic PTSD, I just find it really stabilizing for people. And they have this, they're getting to, even if they don't identify with this positive part, this strong part of that I'm noticing and kind of like working with, they don't yet believe it's them sometimes, but they can accept that they could use it outside of therapy.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful place to begin and then do maybe sometimes some slow like eye movement or tapping so they can kind of start titrating and feeling in their system. They don't have to accept that it is actually them, but they can start using it and having that resource. And I just, yeah, I've been spending a long time before going to the EMDR. Yeah, it's been really helpful for people. I find, particularly if they feel disorganized in some sense. So,
Yeah, that's a beautiful reminder that sometimes when you set the stage enough in that trauma work with the preparation, with containment, with helping clients to draw on their positive internal states, the trauma work itself, that's the rockier part will go smoother, right? Measure twice, cut once, in
yeah,
essence. So very good reminder of that. And I mean, acting as if like inhabiting
yeah,
part of yourself. You can't identify it totally yet, fine, you can identify being it some other time, kind of expanding that window of tolerance.
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
Okay.
you do a lot of body? Do you focus on the body at all?
Good question. I tend to do somatic interweaves where I will have clients, if there's a stuck point, have them take it back to the body, like notice what you're feeling in your body, just be curious, go with that. I will have clients, if they need to get up and move around. I had a client one time need to get up and walk around with the hand buzzers. So she had the battery pack in her pocket and the hand buzzer in her hand and was walking
Yeah,
around because that's what she felt she needed to do to discharge feeling being trapped. It worked great. So a lot of
that's
my
awesome.
somatic work is just integrating that in ways in the moment. Like you said, the intuitive part is so a part of this profession. So it'll
Hmm.
usually be helping people who are out of touch with their body if it's just for any reason other than they don't feel that much, right? Because that's fine. Maybe seeing what the blockage is there, targeting the defenses. So
Right. Yeah, I've recently I had a 4-hour session of EMDR recently, and I asked the girl in the middle of it to go out to the window and look at the sky, because I knew that would help the structure of the brain, like some parts of the brain. So I asked her to go look outside at the sky and then come back, and the reprocessing went in a whole deeper direction. It was very interesting. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that you could do with this work. Yeah. Yeah. Movement is good.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you say is good?
Moving around, I think it is
Yes.
good.
Movement
It
therapy.
well, movement with just moving a little bit with the EMDR,
Yeah.
um, even is helpful. Um,
Well, yeah, that leads me to think if you like, do you know Odd de Jong's EMDR 2.0? Have you delved into his stuff at all?
no, I haven't. I've heard of EMDR 2.0. It's like the thing the last few years, a lot of people are talking about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I'll just add because a lot of it is adding additional forms of attention taxation. So having people do another task. So maybe having them walk or tap in different cadences that are different than just the typical back, forth.
Mhm.
So there's some interesting elements there that I
Something.
think of when you talk about the body work, like adding in something else that's grounding, adding something in that pulls you a little bit more into the present and taxes that working memory to help you go up that hill and down the roller coaster of reprocessing.
Yes.